Get your name right this time, Ikemba.
Dijeron negro y todos me señalaron. Dijeron igualdad, pero esta vez me separaron. Dijeron mucho, pero no se olvidaron de callarse. Cuánto odio por mi piel sembraron. Dijeron historia y la tergiversaron. Dijeron guerra, muerte, odio y nos culparon. Enfermedades, epidemias nos contagiaron. Exterminación de mi fauna complace a tus mercados. Dijeron riqueza y todos se lo robaron. Oro, platino, diamante, a la fuerza se lo llevaron. Y la actualidad es tan triste que todo aquello que dijeron es lo mismo que hoy se dice más. ¿Quién dice, quién explota, quién se beneficia? El asesino, el mismo que da las noticias. Hay una cuenta fácil que siempre me da las grandes riquezas, de dónde vienen y hacia dónde van.
Independiente como los Mao Mao, concluyente como los Mao Mao,
como los Mao Mao,
como los Mao Mao. Somos resistentes como los Mao Mao, independiente como los Mao Mao, concluyente como los Mao Mao,
como los Mao Mao,
como los Mao Mao. Somos resistentes como los Mao Mao. Nati Dre es afroresistencia, cultura ancestral, afrodescendencia, solidaridad. Esa es la esencia, la diáspora africana eleva la conciencia, conciencia negra, universal, progresista y transcultural. Negros y mestizos revolucionando, pueblos caribeños y africanos en un solo bando. No más explotación, colonialismo interno, no más confusión, supremacía blanca en el Babilón. Soy rojo, negro y verde, afroliberación. Mientras más negro, más represión. Somos creadores, recupera tu visión. Mi misión es educar con amor, contra el silencio, vivo sin temor. Independiente como los Mao Mao, concluyente como los Mao Mao,
como los Mao Mao,
como los Mao Mao. Somos resistentes como los Mao Mao, independiente como los Mao Mao, concluyente como los Mao Mao,
como los Mao Mao,
como los Mao Mao. Somos resistentes como los Mao Mao.
What's happening? It's the Rise Up Morning Show, the place where you can get all your Pan-African, Black nationalist, revolutionary news, the place you can find some of the dopest guests that ever did what they do, the place you can find Ikemba and Fernando riding shotgun with Kalonji Changa today on this wonderful day. You know what I mean? What's happening, brothers? How y'all doing today?
What's good? What's good? Everything good?
Okay.
Yep. Doing awesome, man. Ready to rise up.
Ready to rise up. That's a good thing, man. We are live and direct. Today is what? Friday.
TGIF.
16. Yes.
Is.
Yes. It's a freestyle Friday
16.
going on. Yes. Definitely, we appreciate folks for checking in. It is the month of Black August. Black August is still going strong. Matter of fact, you know what? We'll give folks a sneak peek. We have something that'll be dropping by the next time you see the Rise Up show. You'll see a new project that's dropping this week. I'm gonna tell y'all like this right here. If you want a free copy, a complimentary copy of our latest piece coming from Black Power Media, we suggest that you go to blackpowermedia.org, join the email list, and say, I want that gift. Where my gift at? You know what I mean? So we got something that we think you all will enjoy as we expand Black Power Media. You know, unfortunately, some folks thought we fell off, but I don't know. I guess they thought they was thinking, but you know,
wrong.
That was the word on the streets.
Well, I don't know what Sesame Street, maybe. You know what I'm saying? But in the real world, folks already knew what time it was. But you know, every now and then, you know, there's always propaganda against the propagandist. You know what I mean? Dig that.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Unfortunately, you know, folks do the work of the state without even realizing that they're doing the work of the state. Speaking of the state, today in Black history, today is the day that Angela Davis was issued a federal warrant. Well, there was a federal warrant issued in her connection to the Johnson Jackson situation. So this particular week was the first time, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, She was the third woman ever placed on the FBI's top 10 most wanted fugitives list. And that took place this week. It became official on August 18th, 1970, which is 54 years ago. This was after Jonathan Jackson went inside the Marin County Courthouse. She was accused, of course, of supplying the guns. They read her name, more or less. And, later on, she came with some nonsense talking about they were left somewhere and they were utilized, and she didn't know they was going to be utilized. Whatever the case was, don't hate the deliverer of the message. I'm just telling you what the facts are. But also, this week, the Honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey we will commemorate and celebrate his birthday tomorrow.
Right on.
Marcus Garvey.
Someone that has impacted
Africa for Africans at home and abroad.
No doubt. Let me ask y'all, man, like what was the first time, or when was the first time you heard of Marcus Garvey, and what did you think about it?
First time I heard of Marcus Garvey, I first heard about the flag, and I went to look it up. And that's when I read about the flag. I was like, yo. Once I read about it, I was like, that's it. This is my flag forever. Like I'm not, But then that's when I started looking deeper into it, like who created it, when, and that's how I found out about Garvey. Then I think the philosophy. I think that was the first book I read about.
Philosophy and Opinions.
Yeah, Philosophy and Opinions. I think that was the first one. And from there, man, I just went all the way in. Like, yeah, exactly. That was it. That was the one, man.
On deck.
Without a doubt. Now, the thing that's wild about Garvey, who was born in Jamaica, in St. Anne's Bay, Jamaica. Garvey was born in 1887. He would have been 136 years old today. So we talk about Garvey, and I'm saying this, I'm trying to put it into context, because you're talking about a man who J. Edgar Hoover declared war on, along with progressive or Black nationalist or Pan-Africanist organization leadership, particularly here in the U.S. This is one of the people that he targeted. Here it is. Like I said, this man was born in the late 1800s, and today, here it is, 136 years later, on the eve of his birthday, we're still speaking that man's name.
That's right.
That's a powerful and very impactful thing. I'm hoping, because there's two known speeches of Garvey, or at least two clips from Garvey, and I believe it was recorded at Madison Square Garden in the early 1920s. I believe it was 1920 or between 1920 and 1923. But you can just hear the power of his speech, and perhaps before the end of the show, we may just play something from Garvey, because I think folks need to know the power of this man, because the speech that he gave, when you talk about those speeches, that was like 100 years ago, maybe like 102, 103 years ago. He had so much fire back then,
right,
that again, to this very day, Fernando, who is sitting in France right now, mentioned how when he saw the flag that Garvey gave us, and we talked about the flag a few days ago, that red, black, and green, the impact of what he left. And Garvey was locked up right here in Atlanta, and some of you may have heard me telling a story about how when he was walking into Atlanta Federal Penitentiary, one of the reporters was like, "Mr. Garvey, we got you now. What are you going to do?" And Garvey turned and said, "Well, you may have the lion in the cage, but I left many cubs in the bush." We are
Garvey had bars, man.
No doubt. You already know. You already know he had bars. You hear him talk, man. You hear the speeches.
Yeah. And this is a man who influenced Malcolm. And of course, Malcolm's parents was Garveyites. He influenced the Black Panther Party, and many members of the Black Panther Party was a part of the UNIA as well. So again, when you talk about that red, black, and green, when you talk about RBG, man, can't too many people do it like Honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey. So we salute Marcus Garvey on this day. And in honor of Marcus Garvey, today I think we need to rap about organizing and the importance of studying, as our comrades dead president talk about Malcolm Garvey Huey. You know what I'm saying?
That's right.
Well, that's
yeah. I think those are some folks who need to be revisited. Oftentimes, when we talk about movement, we kind of forget about our particular history and culture. We talk about other folks. We talk about Mao, which is great, and Lenin, and you talk about so many others that were socialists, so on and so forth, but or communists, what have you. And when it comes to African people, not often do we get down to the meat of things. So you're talking about Garvey, an individual who to this day, a lot of folks don't like. It's a lot of colorism around Garvey. Folks don't talk about that. I've listened to certain people talk about their disdain for Garvey. They try to say he was try to call him a con and all kinds of other shit, primarily because he wasn't what America would deem sexy. He didn't have the quote unquote sex appeal that these capitalists and these imperialists wanted to see. You know what I'm saying? He was a dark-skinned, round man with a heavy Jamaican accent that knew he was an African. You understand what I'm saying?
Unapologetically.
Unapologetically. I pointed out on previous shows how it's almost a revolutionary act for folks here to even call themselves an African. You understand what I'm saying? So, for Garvey to be doing that 100 plus years ago, he was looked at as a strange kind of man. He was feeding the people, nourishing them. He was attempting to get ships to, transport Africans and goods and cargo, so on and so forth. He had newspapers in different languages. He spoke about his love for Africa like a Christian would speak about their love for heaven. Yet he never physically set foot on Africa, on the African continent.
Because of these colonizers.
Right. And to that point, like I said, because some folks like, how can you say that, he talked about Africa like a Christian would, heaven, because that's what he did. You know what I mean? He talked about that like it was the promised land. So we salute Marcus Mosiah Garvey today in his honor. We're going to take it back and we're going to talk about, different ways in which we organize. Fernando and Bouna, they're over in France. We're over here in the U.S. The Rise Up International Morning Show, it's based out of France and out of the U.S. Oftentimes our ego will even put the U.S. first. You know what I'm saying? I didn't say that the show was based out of the U.S. and France. I said it's based out of France and the U.S. And folks are looking like, what do you mean? You know what I mean? I thought you were from... Relax. We're going to talk about organizing today. This is the Rise Up Morning Show. And we asking folks to rise up. We ask you to support our mission. We got a lot of folks that want to detract. A lot of folks that want to, do that right there. But this is where you get that foot traffic. This is where you get that work right here. So stay tuned. We got Isaac on the wheels in the background. But man, Isaac, y'all don't make us call Isaac out here.
Isaac come out, it's a rap.
Isaac come out, it's a whole rap. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, checking out the Rise Up Morning Show. We'll be right back at you. Bye.
Rise up.
I think I would be the first to know if there was. I'm saying that there was no conspiracy, that Jonathan, a 17-year-old man-child, was working according to the dictates of his own mind. In fact, I'm convinced that everybody around him was making a tremendous effort to clip his wings, slow him down. I think most people saw that thing building, meaning the loss of confidence, loss of faith in the processes that were going down, the court appearances and the Salinas, and the way we were being treated. I tried not to emphasize the foul treatment when he was around me. But
well, it seems to you then that this is something that it took a long time for Jonathan to come to the point he reached last Friday.
It built over a period of time. It built up over a period of time. Seeing the processes there in Salinas, Campbell, and Brazil, I think enough to.
Rise Up Morning Show. That was Field Marshal George Jackson. Field Marshal George Jackson, one of the founders, along with W.L. Nolan, of the Black Guerrilla family. One of the Field Marshal, drafted Field Marshal for the Black Panther Party, drafted by Minister U.E.P. Newton. George Jackson, in that clip, he's speaking about his 17-year-old brother, Jonathan, who went inside the Marin County Courthouse and, told the folks that he'd be taking over, and has guns to folks like William Christmas, James McClain, and Rochelle McGee. Rochelle McGee is a former political prisoner. He was released last year, served 67 years of his life in prison. As I mentioned, he had about 15 and a half to 16 years of his life that he was actually not behind bars. For 67 years, this man was in these gulags. You know what I'm saying? So we remember Rochelle McGee and, Jonathan Jackson and the others mentioned this week and during the month of Black August and, throughout our time on this planet. As I mentioned earlier, Angela Davis became a fugitive because of her affiliations with George and Jonathan Jackson and her supplying the weapons that Jonathan Jackson went inside the Marin County Courthouse with and handed to William Christmas, James McClain, who was on trial for stabbing a prison guard, and of course Rochelle McGee. When they was headed out of that particular courthouse, they took the Judge Harold Haley hostage. I believe they took the DA hostage and a juror. And basically, the van that they was driving in was fired upon. And in the aftermath, Jonathan, William Christmas, James McClain, and Judge Harold Haley were killed. You know what I mean? So we remember those brothers. I want to point out, too, that Georgia Jackson, mother of Jonathan and George Jackson, they both, her children, both of her sons, were murdered with a year apart, was assassinated by the state. The first son, of course, Jonathan Jackson, was assassinated on August 7th, 1970. And then, of course, George Jackson was assassinated on August 21st, 1971. So we remember Jonathan and George Jackson, and we salute Georgia Jackson because you had to be a strong woman to lose two children to the state back to back. Listen to the Rise Up Morning Show. You guys got anything you want to talk about?
I was wondering if because I know that George Jackson, he had his own style of martial arts that he begun, and he was teaching the brothers while he was locked up. I was wondering if somebody was able to continue that and teach that maybe throughout, or if it got lost. Do you know anything about that?
Repeat it one more time. I'm sorry, brother. The style of martial arts.
Yeah, I was wondering if somebody was able to continue teaching that, or if it got lost, or if it's
Yeah.
a style that he came up with.
So I know OG Kamasi teaches martial arts, and I believe he may teach a style of that. And we will get OG Kamasi on the horn. We've had him on RSTV in the past, so definitely, I believe it has carried on.
That's what's up.
Yeah, no, that's dope, man. I appreciate that history too, in the spirit of Black August. When I'm thinking about August 21st, because that is the day that Comrade Field Marshal George Jackson lost his life. But it's symbolic when you think about what took place on the 21st as far as the Haitian Revolution and Nat Turner's rebellion. So just thinking about the 21st and what took place on that day, man. That's it's enough to motivate. Should be enough to motivate us all, to continue on the legacies of the Nat Turners, Duddy Bookmans, and George Jackson. Just saying all three of their names together, man, is powerful.
It's our duty. So. It's our duty to continue, man.
Absolutely, man.
No doubt. Yeah. And I believe around that time as well was Gabriel Prosser.
I think Prosser was the 31st.
Right. No, I know, but I'm saying around that time. I didn't mean that. Yeah. We've been to his spot up in Richmond. Every now and then we go. Whenever we go to Richmond, we pay homage to Gabriel Prosser as well. So definitely.
I'm a historian, so I gotta. I'm always stuck on dates. Dates, man. It's the 31st.
It's all good. So the 31st is actually Chairman Fred's birthday as well. So we say salute to Chairman Fred since you're shooting out dates, brother. You have a date off real quick. But no, definitely we appreciate you brothers raising the banner and the flag and continuing the work of not only Garvey but George and so many others.
Could I speak to Garvey too, really quick? Garvey, because you brought up a few points that just stuck with me as far as like even J. Edgar Hoover and his obsession with Garvey during that time. The first black FBI, I think it was BO at the time, but the first black agent recruited by the BO, which would become the FBI, he was recruited to infiltrate the Garvey movement.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And, even a lot of the things, there's some things that we probably won't be able to uncover. We have to connect dots. But I've come across research that talked about even the selling of those ships to Garvey was done by FBI people, by agents. Sorry, I keep saying FBI. They weren't at the time. By agents, to undermine the Garvey movement and what he was doing. So, Garvey was going up against a lot. He had what Malcolm said, my enemies and friends are present, right? They're here. And that's what Garvey was dealing with, man. And so when we think about what Garvey wasn't able to accomplish here in the States and even around the world, had a lot to do with the forces that he was up against. We talked about not even being able to step foot on Africa. That's because of colonizer. Colonizer didn't even want his paper being sold in Africa, right? And there was within the thing too. This is why in the Uhuru movement, sometimes people ask. You may have asked this too, Fernando, as far as
internationalism.
African internationalism and Pan-Africanism. Like, what's the issue? With Pan-Africanism, which is no real issue, but I think like there's a distinction that the chairman and the movement makes between those who was representing the black petty bourgeoisie at the time, or those who were aspiring, you know, bourgeoisie, who was a part of the Pan-Africanist movement, like the Du Bois, right? And Du Bois would later come around, but at that particular time, those people, there was a Black elitist class who was a part of that Pan-Africanist movement, who was against Garvey and his movement, right? And Garvey, you know, leading one of the largest Black, really, labor movements in a sense. Like he did what none of them could do, was organize the masses, the working class. You know what I'm saying? They were having conversations with themselves, you know, and actually masturbating. I can say that's what they were among themselves, those who were a part of those Pan-African congresses and so forth. And I'm not trying to knock, you know, this isn't a knock against them, but you know, Garvey was a different monster.
No doubt.
And this is what,
I'm sorry, fam. I know y'all like, where that brother go? Somebody was outside doing the lawn, and I'm like, that's cool, but
I ain't got no money.
Yeah. Like, who are you? You know what I'm saying? But anyway, so it was the wrong house. But anyway, moving right along. I'm sorry, what was y'all talking about? I'm just sitting there. I'm like, man, I know
Garvey's impact, you know, and Pan-Africanism.
Yeah, for sure. Like he, you know, he represented the Pan-Africanism that was the model, I think, for us.
Right.
You know,
well, I think, you know, not to cut you off, but like, you know, Amzat Bukari Yabara, who we had on the show not too long ago, he likes to say that, you know, to him, he, as a historian, he likes to say that Pan-Africanism started with the Haitian Revolution, you know, when way before, you know, with the Haitian Revolution, when Africans from different backgrounds and different parts of the continent got together and were like, okay, this is it, you know, we're going to free ourselves and we're going to come together. And that's kind of like, to him, he says that's the beginning of Pan-Africanism, you know, with the Haitian Revolution.
I think it started on the ships, man.
True. You can go back to that too. Yeah. Or some people like to say, you know, with the different types of all over where whatever maroons started,
the maroon communities,
yeah, for sure.
You know,
no doubt.
You can go to Brazil, Jamaica, you know,
even in Cuba, man. In Cuba, they had the maroon communities. And matter of fact, as far as Cuba, you know, Garvey had 11 chapters in Cuba, you know, and this is not very well known history, you know, because a lot of people like to say that, Garvey didn't have a big impact in Cuba. He didn't really stick, you know, but that's a lie because he had 11 chapters over there, you know.
And Costa Rica, the month of August is a celebration. They call this like Afro. What is it? It's like an Afro celebration that they do for the month of August in Costa Rica, and they picked that month because it's the month that Marcus Garvey and the UNIA had their convention, right? Costa Rica is like really the Afro, you know, Afro Latino. What would you say? Afro. So that movement very strong. They had a delegation that went to the UN to have August 31st recognized as the International Day of People of African Descent. And I may have the wording wrong, but that's I might have it backwards, but it's the day of International Day of People of African Descent. Where Costa Rica led that delegation to make that happen.
We deep all over South America, man. Sometimes people forget because you know some of us speak Spanish or whatever, thinking we're not African, but we Africans all over, man. You know, South America is deep.
You know, I'm glad you brothers building on that, and because indeed Garvey impacted folks all around the planet. You know, I was talking to some comrades about Belize some years ago, and they were talking about Isaiah Morter, who's a wealthy landowner there, and talked about how he gave his estate to the UNIA. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, it was about 500 something acres of land.
Mm.
You know what I mean? So, this is, people love Garvey. You have so many folks that have negative things to say and nonsense, but they haven't done a quarter of Garvey's work. I'm going to invite our brother, Comrade Cimarron, who is a close comrade and historian around Garvey. And he's someone that's our age. He's not, he's not just some, an elder or whatever, but he's a brother who took on Garvey and, he embodies and, brings the history, brings the, brings information. Him and a few other comrades that are sincere, serious Garveyites. A lot of folks call themselves Garveyites. Excuse me, that's not a diss or not, but if all you know is the colors of the flag and the name of the organization,
right?
You know what I'm saying, and what day he was born. I mean, that's not necessarily, there's more to it.
The Garveyites, man, they were organizers, man, premier organizers. They were on the ground with it, man. And that's why.
No internet. Biggest organization.
Yeah, that's not because they put in that. They put in that work. They didn't need no social media and all. They was the door knocking. You know what I'm saying? On the corner with it. You know what I'm saying? Recruiting. That's right. And again, like, with Garvey, the difference between Garvey and a lot of them other folks that was just chatting, right? In the halls of academia or wherever, they weren't there too much at that time, but you know what I mean, like people, that felt that had that elitist sort of mentality, that talented 10th, mindset. They were just talking for each other, they couldn't organize the mass Garvey, and that's why they were envy and jealousy of Garvey. Because he had the ear of the masses and they didn't. They had a whole campaign to run Garvey out of America, and was actually working with the state to have Garvey removed from him. So when we talk about and some big name, I ain't gonna say no names right now, but some of these folks' favorite people was working with the state to have Garvey. What do they call that?
Extradited.
Extradited. Send them out the country.
Not extradited.
Deported.
Yeah, I said extradited. I got these bastards on the mind because they're always looking to extradite somebody, but no, definitely deported.
Sure.
And it's sad because even with all the work that he put in, he's a man that died broke. You know what I'm saying? He was deported, disrespected, disregarded, so on and so forth. But it shows you how, sometimes people love what you can do for them and not necessarily love who you are. And I'm saying that because there's no way you should be able to say that someone like Garvey died without the best life. You know what I mean?
I think they did a great job of not making any excuses, because he still should have got that support some way, somehow. But I think the state, the imperialists, did a great job of just like cutting him off from everyone. You know what I'm saying? Because a lot of his base was here in the U.S. Though he was in all of these other places. Yeah. Like the U.S. was his stronghold, and I think the colonizer, they knew what they were doing when they deported him. But another thing too, like I feel like that was part of this movement by the state and the black petty bourgeoisie to kind of like shape our movement, or the way that we advance as African people in this country, like sort of like what ideas we gravitate to. And so when we see even today how like a lot of us who come out who are cut from that cloth of like Garvey and the Black Panthers, like the struggle we have of organizing people, getting people to gravitate to this message, that's all about design. You know what I'm saying? A million people was listening to Garvey's message. How are they not listening to us now? You know, we ain't saying, well, I mean, it's a little different, but we still talking about
according to the times. It's according to the times too. You know, it has to be a little different.
Yeah, but it's been shaped for, you know, the minds have been shaped to have certain messages resonate with them, right? And certain movements resonate with them than others, you know.
True.
That's what Clinton told us that.
Yeah.
At you know, the funeral.
Without a doubt. Yeah. Well, we're gonna go to a quick break, a quick Black Power break. Stay tuned. You're checking out the Rise Up Morning Show. We're talking about Garvey. We're talking about you and I. We're talking about you and us. You know what I mean? And we're talking about continue to keep the movement moving. Rise Up Morning Show, Black Power Media. We'll be back at you. That's right.
When I was held in solitary confinement, I was held in the death cell in Pretoria. First thing you do when you get into the cell is to do with that at least you have a pin or something on you, so you can scratch the calendar on the wall. And that is how I kept sane, because you lose track of the time and the date. It had 3 doors. You had your door, and then the grill door, and then the door. And the sound of those keys, you would hear the first door opening, the sound of the clinging of those keys, you know, was part of the torture system. And each time, when you have just come to prison, each time they did that, it opened the cell. It hit you right into your heart.
My grandfather wrote to my mother and my aunt to reassure them that everything will be okay, even under the circumstances of both of them being virtually orphans. My darlings, once again our beloved mommy has been arrested, and now she and daddy are away in jail. My heart bleeds as I think of her sitting in some police cell, 24 hours of the day, longing for her little ones. We have a brave and determined mommy who loves her people with all her heart. She gave up pleasure and comfort in return for a life full of hardship and misery.
I remember at some stage when my sister and I were asleep, we were actually removed from the bed and they searched under the mattress. I remember things like that, and they would actually take my mother and go off with her without a care as to who we'd be left with.
They would bring this porridge on top of your toilet bucket. They turn the bucket upside down, they put your food there, and the wardress stands at the door and kicks in the bucket. Couldn't even serve you with their hands, because that would lower their dignity. That is the extent to which they dehumanized you. I reached a point, I think a threshold, where the body could not take the pain anymore, and then I would faint. And when they threw a bucket of water to wake me up, it didn't matter that I was soaking wet. I got up, I was so refreshed, and I started fighting all over again. They can rather take my life, I don't care. But I will fight to the last drop of my blood.
I'm waiting for you. Don't touch me. Don't drag me. I'm coming. Don't drag me. Don't drag me. You may accompany me. I know what arrest means. Don't drag me.
I had noticed that the name Winnie was beginning to be forgotten by even my family. Everything was Mandela's wife. I became a nobody. And I had grown up in Pondoland. I had walked tall from my background, from my grandmother and my people of Pondoland, who are a very, very proud ethnic group, a group that is known as warriors in the country. And I wanted it known that it was Winnie Mandela and not Mandela's wife. And I will show them that women are going to bring about change in South Africa. And we did. Tituzanyiwe, meaning trial. I cannot believe my mother and my father named me that. Trial. Why? At the time a baby is born, what trial were they thinking of? And then I spent all my life in the course of this country on trial.
Welcome back, welcome back to the Rise Up Morning Show. We just saw Mama Winnie Mandela giving a powerful speech, man.
I was loving that, man. I was loving that. You know, at first though, when she was, the first thought I had when she was talking about the prison conditions, you know, and it just, of course, it just takes me back to these prison camps, man.
Yeah.
You know, that Africans find themselves in, and you know, they're not built to rehabilitate, right? It really, you know, really built to break you even more. It's another form of control, another form of slavery. Here in the States, it's like in France, do they have a similar? Because here they say slavery is abolished except for the punishment of a crime. And so, you know, once you in behind those walls, you're basically a slave according to the 13th Amendment here. And you know, slaves have no right. Slaves can be treated however they see fit. Yeah, so I'm going to, you said they do have something.
I don't know, as far as the law, I'm not sure exactly if it's as similar. I'm aware of that in the United States. I don't know if it's similar or if it's the same here in France, but I do know that when you're locked up, the treatment is similar. From talking to brothers, you know, yeah, it's definitely, you know, whatever the law says, you know, when they have your ass locked up, they do whatever the fuck they want. And
absolutely,
you know, it's not anything to help us, you know, get back into society or whatever, whatever it's supposed to be. You know, we know what it's about, and it is very similar. And you know, just like I like what how the Ruba bin Wahad speaks about, you know, the armed agents of the state, you know, and how that's how it is, not just in the U.S., you know, like police is the armed agents of the states pretty much around the world, you know, like Kalonji says, you know, it's a police state, and it's really like almost like a police world that we live in, you know. But they do to our people while they're locked up, and especially when they're, you know, political prisoners, you know, the torturing and all that is it's crazy.
Yeah, we have to be about abolition, man. You know, I'm all for that. You know, but I understand as well, just, you know, under colonialism, because of the contradictions that exist, you can't just abolish the police and prisons without building, you know, those institutions that can address those contradictions. So, you know, how are these things can happen simultaneously, right? But you can't just be talking about abolish the police and you're not talking about, you know, destroying capitalism and building the institutions that will address the contradictions that make the police necessary, not necessary for us, but necessary in the society, to prevent, the have-nots from taking over this thing, right?
Yeah,
So
and it's a lot of work to
yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot of work to do because sometimes we go back to the same thing. We go back to political education because unfortunately in certain spaces right now when we talk about abolishing the police, we may get more resistance from our own people. Like no,
Yeah.
like no, what happens when I need to, but
They
then
like,
that's
what's your
also
plan? What's the
right.
plan?
But then
They
that's
listen.
also it also shows that we do need to do some work also to let them know that work on community control,
Absolutely.
things of that lane,
Mhm.
But to get back to Winnie Mandela real quick,
Oh yeah.
I did want to mention, the importance. First of all, she's like one of our, greatest freedom fighters. I think we don't speak about her enough, But
Hmm.
I did want to mention, like a lot of people tend to speak about Nelson Mandela, and when
Hmm.
I mean, Nelson Mandela did his work up to a certain point, in my opinion, that we should acknowledge. But
Yeah.
definitely, Mama Winnie Mandela, is great. But she speaks about the women, and I know from
Mm-hmm.
reading a lot of Sankara as well. Thomas Sankara, he talks a lot about that and the importance of the women being at the forefront of the revolution. You know what I mean? That's
Yeah.
also, yeah.
No, just example in that clip, we get an example of the way patriarchy works, though, right? Where the women voices are silent, are silenced. They're they become like we disappear them, in these movements. And so I appreciate, Wendy Mandela saying, like, taking, uh, sort of just like attacking or resisting the narrative that, it's just a man who is making this move, making these changes happen, right? No, I'm here. I exist. You know what I'm saying? And she went out there
That's
and
right.
showed that, yeah, it's a woman. It's a woman too
Yeah.
that is at the center of these changes that are taking, or at the vanguard as well. And so I think like it is important too, like for us as men to recognize the women when we have these conversations, making sure that it shouldn't have to be we need a woman to be on the platform to talk about women, uh,
Absolutely.
that have done great things in history and continue to do great things.
Mm.
Uh, if we're going to break down patriarchy and attack patriarchy and sexism, it has to come from those who are committing those,
That's right.
acts, right, of
Yeah.
oppression.
Without a doubt.
So yeah. But that was definitely a powerful piece, man.
No doubt. That was powerful, man. So today we're gonna have a short, like a little bit of a, shorter program today,
Oh yeah,
But
for real?
yeah, I think so. Man. But you know what? We did have a story we wanted to break down, right? We had a little story we wanted to break down.
We do. Do I need to pull the story up, or
Yeah, if you
is
can.
someone going to
Or
pull the story up for us? How does this work? I'm new to
I
the.
don't know. Who we got someone on the ones and twos that has the story back there, man. I don't know.
I mean, I can pull it up if it's Oh,
Oh, look at
okay.
that.
No, he pulled up the wrong story.
Oh,
He pulled up the wrong story.
that's not the
That's a
one.
serious story right there.
Yeah, that's a serious story.
Yeah. So
Yeah, because we spoke a little bit while you look for it, maybe, or maybe you just want to talk about it, but just to say,
oh
like,
yeah, so
there you go.
a lot
There
of
you go.
people probably been hearing about Ray Gun and the Olympics. And look at that stance she in now, man. I think that's called the kangaroo right there.
That's
Yeah,
wild.
if I'm not mistaken. But Ray Gun has been under a lot of scrutiny for cronyism, I think, or is it nepotism? Even though they're fairly related, but I think nepotism deals with family, right? Family,
Yeah.
Showing favoritism. Her husband, who was one of the judges to decide whether Reagan was one of the judges to decide if Reagan was going to represent her country, Australia, in the Olympics for the breakdancing competition.
Right.
So I'll read a little of the story. The story actually is pushing back on that narrative, but it does talk about the privileged position that she was in that did allow this to happen. So there is a narrative that is painted that shows that, it's still because of colonialism, Reagan had an advantage over those who were not white. So I'll get into this. How Reagan earned her spot fair and square as an Olympics breaker. The truth behind the ongoing controversy over the highly amenable dancer. In October 2023, members of the World Dance Sport Federation, or WDSF, learned breaking, the sport they've been trying to make happen at the Olympics for years, would not be appearing at the 2028 Los Angeles Games. In response, the organization's president, Sean Tay, made a grand proclamation showing the success of breaking's Olympics debut at Paris 2024 is therefore on the forefront of the WDSF agenda, he said. Our performance in Paris will define the future of dance sport within the Olympic movement. Oops. Going into the games, breaking had a lot riding on his shoulders, but no one counted on Reagan, the newly infamous 36-year-old last Australian B, as breakers are called, whose performance on the Paris stage included bizarre floor writhing, awkward freezes, and original moves like kangaroo hops. I know you're from Australia, but come on, kangaroo hops though. Come on.
That's wild.
Reagan, real name Rachel Gunn, instantly became a viral sensation. Notoriety that only skyrocketed when the public learned that Gunn, who won none of her Olympics battles, actually has a PhD in breakdancing. Yes, really. Gunn's performance has not only overshadowed the two actual breaking gold medalists, Japan's Yuasa Ami and Canada's Phil Wizard, plus 16-year-old Australian b-boy Jeff Dunn, it's arguably become the defining moment of a Parisian Games marked by controversy and absurdity. Yo, where's the brothers and sisters at, though, man? Hold on.
Listen, they out there, man. They out there for sure.
Hey, come on. And then next thing you know, we're going to have a hip-hop competition, and it's going to be nothing but colonizers battling each other and winning medals.
Man, it's going to be all M&Ms.
Oh, man. This is
listen, though. This is, I mean, anybody who knows anything about hip-hop can tell that, she wasn't up to par. But, like, it's like, I think, it's like, we know it's kind of like it's like the music, basically. We know if you look to the underground, you're gonna get the best MCs as far as the music, right? If you're looking at the commercial shit that comes out, you're gonna see some whack shit. Well, this is kind of the same thing. I don't know how the Olympics got this thing ready. I mean, there were some dope b-boys and b-girls, but as far as what she did, obviously, there's 26 million people in Australia. I know they got some dope b-girls. I know they got some dope b-girls, And like you said, they're probably African.
But I'm not sure, because I'm reading this story in real time right now. But from what I've been reading, though, in other places, there were people who were better, but they didn't have their passports. They were just dealing with contradictions, right? It was like some of those things.
Yeah, but what's I mean, that's kind of possible. But what the bullshit is that it's the Olympics, man. So you know how much pool they have? It's for the Olympics. Like, what you mean they didn't have their passport? They got a lot of pool. They'll give them their passport for the Olympics, bro. I know how it is, man, because I got some brothers that play for their national team as far as basketball, And when it comes to international sports, they got pool, brother. Like, what you mean? If you want to give them their passport, you get your passport.
I'm just reporting what I heard.
They're just coming up with shit now, man.
Hey, Isaac, you can scroll down to where it says, but that doesn't mean it's easy. All right. So I'm going to take it from here. The subtext of this criticism that Gunn benefited from her whiteness has merit. Gunn was educated at Sydney's most elite high school. She had the opportunity to get a PhD in an obscure field and the wealth to fund appearances at international breaking competitions. Her white privilege in a dance scene rife with cultural appropriation makes her an easy target for criticism. At the same time, some have tried to argue she represents exactly the opposite, a diversity hire. And the Australian wokeness going wrong. People have jumped on and used her as the new scapegoat to further their cause. What Pia observed in his live stream, we never thought this would happen, he told me. She's getting torn down by a lot of people. I'm going to stop there, man, for the sake of time. But there's a lot to unpack there. But, for one, it speaks to colonialism as well, where you have this colonialism and racism, right? Where there's this class and race component, right, that put her at an advantage over, the Aboriginal population, African population, darker, population in Australia. So she was educated in the finest schools, able to, get a PhD, right? These are opportunities that most of the colonized don't have.
Absolutely.
Right. So it's speaking in the article is trying to speak that to that the other narrative as far as there being some nepotism that didn't happen, but the the verdict is still out on that. But it is trying to be objective, I guess, and say like there is some criticism that could be had as far as her being able to represent Australia in the Olympics.
Yeah, for sure. And when I saw her at first, I'm not gonna lie, it was a good laugh. It was a good laugh.
Man, it was hilarious. We couldn't show it.
She took it to the next level, man. Like it was really on some other shit. Like you was just like, what is she doing, yo? But as far as on a serious note, real quick, I am, I consider, I am a hip hop, artist, activist. So the one thing that is sad is that, it's kind of like commercial rap. Today, a lot of people, when they hear hip hop, they think in materialistic shit, shit that doesn't really represent the culture. And now, for the first time that breaking was in the Olympics, that was the highlight. So that's the type of shit that's going to stay into people's head as far as hip hop and breaking. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like clowning hip hop again. And, apparently hip hop breaking won't even be in the next Olympics. That's what I'm hearing. That's what I'm reading.
Yeah. But that was not because of Ray Gunn's performance, just so
no. But I'm saying that's
making the record straight for the people that's listening. That's all.
But I'm saying that's what's gonna stick. Like hip hop or some clown shit as far as breaking and
But the decision to not have it in the next Olympics was already made years ago before. So it wasn't. They didn't come to that decision during this Olympics. But what you said I think is valid, man.
Yeah. So apparently I'm hearing that breaking will be back in 2034 Olympics, which will be in Australia. So she gonna be back. Listen, for those of you who missed it, she'll be back. She might be a little older.
Home field advantage now. Oh my goodness.
She might get her a gold medal, man.
Hey. But on the serious note though, man, like again, I think if anybody's seen her performance, she received all zeros in one of the rounds for her performance. This is how bad of a performer she was, but she represented Australia. Serious contradiction, man. But I think also, when you look at even the top medal winners, I think it shows the contradiction that happens in so many different areas. Like we're just talking about breaking, but we can talk about in sports. We could talk about in business, education. You know what I'm saying? The class and the race component is at play, and you know, even with among the Black community, I think there's contradictions within our community where the inner city kids are at a disadvantage now when it comes to having to compete with those even among the African community who may be in the suburbs and have more resources. And that's why I want to emphasize even the class component, because sometimes it isn't that apparent. The contradictions aren't that apparent because you like, oh, everybody, the majority is Black, right? When we run across that situation, you know, how do we point out the contradiction there? So
no doubt.
I think that's important.
No doubt, no doubt. All right. Yeah. So everybody have a good Friday. Have a good weekend. This has been the Rise Up International Morning Show. Make sure you go to blackpowermedia.org, you know, subscribe, do what you got to do. We got some interesting things coming up real soon. And catch up on these Rise Up morning shows if you haven't seen them all. We've been having some great guests. You know, the comrades have been holding it down. Shout out to Kalonji, shout out to Natacha, shout out to Bouna, shout out to Isaac. And yeah, that's it. Make sure you join the organization if you're not a part of one. You know what I mean? And have a good weekend. Ikemba, you got anything else?
Ojore, Black Power.
Rise up.
Sometimes the riot is a quiet one, where the battle is to love yourself and function in society, where voices of reason are muted by anxiety, like gaining notoriety is selling your soul. So we tend to go no deeper than the shallow water level, trying to keep us overhead in the face of all the slurs and the stares, mentally frozen, paralyzed by fear of failure and success. So we lock, stock, barrel, running while it's crumbling. All these towers and they're babbling, but the baby's in the bath and the stash under the bed on my head, spinning from the circles and the puppets and the strings that they pull. Then we move. Reactionary warfare never produces winners on the field. Feeble and foolish, what tools and what weapons are we using? We need some new ones. Real revolution, it's real solutions. What we've taken on the ways of the ones who conquer with their guns and religion and division. Got my inner me looking like my enemy. Real revolution, where my inner me really a mirror for the galaxy. New time, brand new paradigms, new contracts to sign. They thought that this would all be televised.